For centuries, men have whispered the same question in locker rooms, bars, and bedrooms. How many inches do women really want? It's a source of pride for some, anxiety for others, and curiosity for all. Society fuels the obsession with jokes, movies, and myths that glorify bigger sizes, but rarely does anyone stop to ask, what does science actually say? Is there an ideal size that women prefer? Or is the truth far different from the fantasy? Urologists, psychologists, and researchers have finally started addressing this question head-on, studying thousands of women worldwide to discover whether size really matters, and if so, how much. The results might shock you, because they don't align with the exaggerated stories men tell each other. The first thing science reveals is that most men have a distorted perception of what women expect. Pornography, social pressure, and cultural myths make men believe that women demand unusually large sizes to feel satisfied. In reality, surveys show that women's preferences are far more moderate and often centered on comfort, intimacy, and confidence rather than sheer length. Urologists emphasize that size is only one factor in a much larger equation of attraction and satisfaction. Things like emotional connection, confidence, hygiene, and skill consistently outrank inches in importance. Yet still, the curiosity remains. If women were asked to give a number, what would it be? In one of the most cited studies, researchers presented women with 3D models of different sizes and asked which they found most attractive. The average preferred length for a long-term partner was just over 5 inches, about 13 centimeters, while for a one-time encounter, preferences rose slightly to about 6 inches, 15 centimeters. This suggests that while physical novelty may lead women to prefer slightly larger sizes in casual settings, long-term satisfaction depends more on balance and comfort. The findings are a wake-up call for men who obsess over being bigger. Science shows that most men already fall within the range women actually prefer. The obsession with inches, then, is less about women's expectations and more about men's insecurities. Urologists often remind patients that male anxiety about size is one of the biggest contributors to performance problems in the bedroom. When men focus solely on numbers, they forget the real factors that make relationships thrive. So, how many inches do women actually like? Science says less than you think, and far more than just length. Women value confidence, chemistry, and care. The myth of bigger is always better crumbles under research, replaced by a truth that is both liberating and empowering for men everywhere. Before we can even talk about what women prefer, we need to understand what is normal. Urologists worldwide have collected data on penis size across thousands of men to eliminate myths and exaggerations. According to a major review published in the British Journal of Urology International, BJUI, the average erect penis length globally is 5.16 inches, 13.12 centimeters, with a girth of about 4.6 inches, 11.66 centimeters. In its flaccid state, the average length is 3.6 inches, 9.16 centimeters. These numbers shatter the unrealistic expectations fueled by media and pornography, which often showcase sizes well above the global average. The truth is, most men fall within a much narrower and more balanced range than they believe. When researchers compared these averages to women's stated preferences, an interesting pattern emerged. In survey after survey, women consistently reported that extreme sizes, either too small or too large, were less desirable. Instead, they preferred men who were close to the statistical average, especially in the 5 to 6.5 inch, 13 to 16.5 centimeters range. The reason is practical. Sizes in this range are more compatible with the anatomy of the vagina, allowing for both pleasure and comfort. Urologists note that the vaginal canal is, on average, about 3 to 4 inches deep when unaroused and stretches to 5 to 7 inches during arousal. Anything far outside of this range can create discomfort rather than satisfaction. One study from UCLA asked women not only about preferred length, but also about girth. Surprisingly, girth was often rated as slightly more important than length. Women reported that adequate thickness created a greater sense of fullness and intimacy, while excessive length could sometimes cause pain. This finding explains why many women prefer average lengths but emphasize proportionality. For them, Sexual satisfaction is not a matter of chasing extremes, but of balance, rhythm, and overall connection. Science proves that most men are already naturally equipped to meet women's biological and psychological needs. Yet insecurities keep the myth of bigger is better alive. So where does this leave the anxious man worried about not measuring up? It means that the very thing he fears, being average, is actually what most women want. The obsession with achieving porn-like proportions is not grounded in reality, but in distorted cultural messages. Urologists often remind patients that sexual satisfaction depends less on what's between the legs and more on what's between the ears. Confidence, empathy, and technique consistently outweigh raw size. In truth, science has given men the gift of reassurance. The average man is already within the preferred range, and the key to satisfaction is not adding inches, but adding presence and connection. One of the most fascinating discoveries in sexual health research is that women's preferences for penis size are not fixed. They shift depending on context. When asked about casual encounters, many women lean slightly toward larger than average sizes, often in the 6 to 6.5 inch, 15 to 16.5 centimeters range. Scientists believe this may be linked to biological novelty and the subconscious idea that bigger equals more masculine genes. It's a primitive instinct rooted in evolution, where physical variation may have once signaled reproductive fitness. But when the conversation turns to long-term relationships, women's answers consistently change. Instead of size extremes, they prioritize comfort, emotional intimacy, and a partner who makes them feel secure. In these cases, women overwhelmingly choose sizes close to the global average because balance matters more than spectacle. Urologists point out that this shift is both biological and psychological. The female body is not designed for repeated exposure to very large sizes. Vaginal tissue can stretch, but it can also become irritated or even injured if size is excessive over time. This is why women in surveys often say that too much length or girth can become uncomfortable in a relationship. For them, pleasure is not only about the initial wow factor, but about sustained intimacy. A man who respects her comfort, communicates openly, and focuses on her overall experience will consistently outperform someone who relies only on size. Science confirms what many couples discover through experience. Technique, connection, and care are the true keys to long-term satisfaction. There's also a psychological layer. In casual encounters, women may feel freer to indulge curiosity, testing what it's like to be with someone different or larger than average. But in committed relationships, they know that emotional connection, trust, and compatibility far outweigh novelty. A 2015 study at UCLA highlighted this perfectly. Women asked about ideal size for one-night stands gave answers half an inch larger, on average, than when asked about long-term partners. That half-inch difference is telling. It shows that curiosity exists, but it does not define long-term satisfaction. What endures is comfort, security, and closeness, not size. This dual reality should reassure men everywhere. While myths and media glorify extremes, science reveals that women's actual lives tell a different story. In real relationships, what wins is not inches, but intimacy. Being attentive, confident, and emotionally present is what keeps women coming back. If anything, the evidence proves that the obsession with size is mostly a male anxiety, not a female demand. Women simply want partners who make them feel good, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And the truth, backed by data, is that most men already fit exactly within the range that women prefer for lasting love. When men talk about size, they almost always think in terms of length, how many inches they measure from base to tip. But for women, the story is more complex. Multiple studies show that girth, or thickness, often has a greater impact on sexual satisfaction than length alone. In surveys conducted across North America and Europe, women consistently rated adequate girth as more important for intimacy, while extreme length was more likely to cause discomfort. Urologists explain that this is because the vagina is highly elastic, designed to stretch when aroused, but it is also sensitive to pressure and fullness. Thickness creates the sensation of closeness, while excessive length can push past the area where most nerve endings are concentrated, leading to irritation instead of pleasure. Biology provides the explanation. The majority of vaginal nerve endings are concentrated in the first few inches of the vaginal canal. Beyond that, sensitivity decreases. This means that for most women, extra inches past a certain point don't add much in terms of sensation, but adequate girth can create consistent stimulation where it matters most. This is why many women report that a partner with average length but greater girth feels more satisfying than someone who is long but narrow. From an anatomical standpoint, it's not about reaching the deepest point, but about engaging the areas most responsive to touch. Psychological factors reinforce this preference. Women often associate thickness with a feeling of security and connection, while very long sizes can feel intimidating or even painful. In fact, surveys reveal that women who have experienced partners with extreme length sometimes avoid them in the future, choosing instead those whose proportions fit comfortably with their bodies. This doesn't mean size is irrelevant. It means that balance and proportion are far more important than men often realize. Urologists emphasize that a man with average length and healthy girth is far more aligned with women's reported desires than someone obsessed with chasing unrealistic measurements. The takeaway is liberating for men. The myth of longer is always better is simply not supported by science. Women value proportion, comfort, and closeness over extreme length. Girth plays a central role in providing a satisfying experience, but even that is only one piece of the puzzle. Confidence, skill, and emotional connection consistently outweigh raw measurements. Men who stop worrying about adding inches and instead focus on building intimacy discover what research proves. Satisfaction isn't measured with a ruler, but with presence, care, and compatibility. Ask urologists and sex therapists what really matters in the bedroom, and their answer is rarely size. Instead, they highlight psychological and relational factors, confidence, communication, and connection as the true pillars of satisfaction. Women in countless surveys confirm this. While they may have preferences about length or girth, what actually keeps them satisfied is how their partner makes them feel. A man who is confident, attentive, and emotionally present is consistently rated more desirable than someone who is larger but disconnected or self-absorbed. In fact, performance anxiety caused by size insecurity is often more damaging than size itself. When men obsess over measurements, they undermine the very confidence that women find most attractive. Scientific studies in sexual psychology reveal that women's arousal is far more complex than men's. While men are often visually and physically triggered, women respond to a blend of emotional, psychological, and physical cues. This means that chemistry, trust, and technique can transform an average-size partner into an unforgettable one. Urologists frequently remind patients that many women are less concerned with numbers and more concerned with whether their partner takes time to understand their body. Gentle communication, asking what feels good, adjusting based on feedback, consistently outperforms an extra inch or two of length. The evidence is clear. Satisfaction is not a product of anatomy alone, but of connection and care. One fascinating study in the Journal of Sexual Medicine asked women to rank the qualities that made intimacy fulfilling. Size was mentioned, but it fell far below factors like passion, attentiveness, and confidence. Women emphasized that a partner who showed genuine desire and knew how to build anticipation created experiences far more powerful than any measurement could provide. For them, satisfaction is not mechanical, it is emotional. This explains why some women report more pleasure with partners of average size, but high confidence and skill than with larger partners who lack presence or empathy. Ultimately, sexual satisfaction is not a competition measured in inches. It is an art built on trust and intimacy. Men who accept this truth free themselves from insecurity and focus on what truly matters. Urologists often tell patients, it's not what you have, it's how you use it and how you connect with her. Science, psychology, and women's voices all agree. Confidence, chemistry, and communication are the real keys to satisfaction. Inches may start the conversation, but presence and passion write the story. For generations, men have carried the weight of myths about size. In locker rooms, bars, and films, the narrative has been the same: bigger is better. Pornography has magnified this obsession, flooding the internet with images of men whose sizes are far from the global average. These extremes, while entertaining, set unrealistic expectations that warp men's confidence and women's assumptions. But urologists and researchers point out that these images represent outliers, not the norm. In reality, fewer than 5% of men naturally measure in the exaggerated ranges often depicted in adult films. The average man, around 5 to 6 inches, is not only typical but perfectly aligned with what most women actually prefer. Cultural myths also play a role. In some societies, size has been linked to masculinity, power, and dominance. These associations have created pressure on men to view their worth through a ruler, rather than through their character or abilities. Yet science continues to dismantle these beliefs. Studies consistently show that women value confidence, hygiene, and emotional intelligence far more than inches. The truth is that the myth of size being the ultimate measure of manhood is just that, a myth. What women desire in long-term partners has far more to do with presence and connection than with anatomical extremes. Another damaging myth is that average means inadequate. Urologists warn that this belief drives unnecessary anxiety, risky enlargement surgeries, and even depression in men who are already well within the normal and healthy range. Ironically, many men who fear they are too small are actually perfectly average, or even above average, compared to global data. This disconnect between perception and reality shows how powerful cultural storytelling can be. By repeating exaggerations, society convinces men to chase a standard that very few can or should meet, while ignoring the fact that most women don't want or need extremes in the first place. Science offers liberation from these myths. Large-scale studies across continents prove that the average size is not only common, but also biologically and psychologically compatible with women's preferences. The gap between myth and reality is vast, but once men see the data, many realize they have been chasing shadows. The message from urologists is clear. Stop comparing yourself to unrealistic ideals, because the science says you are already enough. Myths may sell stories, but science restores the truth, and that truth is reassuring for most men. After all the myths, insecurities, and exaggerated stories, the science delivers a clear and liberating truth. Women do not want extremes. Across dozens of studies, the average preference falls within the 5 to 6.5 inch range in length and a healthy, proportional girth. In other words, most men already measure within the zone women actually enjoy. For long-term relationships, women consistently prefer comfort, balance, and emotional connection over sheer size. For casual encounters, the preference shifts only slightly, but still remains close to the global average. This proves that satisfaction is not about chasing the impossible. It's about appreciating what is already enough. Urologists emphasize that what women value most is how a partner makes them feel. Confidence, empathy, and attentiveness repeatedly outweigh inches in determining satisfaction. A man who approaches intimacy with care and presence is far more likely to fulfill his partner than one who obsesses over measurements. In fact, men who carry anxiety about their size often sabotage themselves, allowing insecurity to kill confidence before the bedroom door even closes. The true measure of a man, science shows, lies not in a ruler, but in his ability to connect, communicate, and make his partner feel desired and safe. The message for men is both simple and powerful. Stop comparing yourself to myths. Pornography and cultural exaggerations are designed to entertain, not to reflect reality. Most women are not searching for an anatomical extreme. They are searching for a partner who understands them. If you fall within the average, you already meet the scientific definition of what women prefer. And if you bring confidence, creativity, and care into intimacy, you surpass any arbitrary number of inches. Women's voices across cultures and studies speak with surprising consistency. Satisfaction is not about size, but about experience. So, how many inches do women actually like? The scientific answer is less than men imagine and more than enough for almost everyone. The empowering truth is that you don't need to add inches. You need to add confidence. You don't need to meet myths. You need to meet your partner where she is. And once men let go of the obsession with size, they discover what women have been saying all along. Intimacy is not measured by a ruler, but by the quality of connection. Science has spoken, and its verdict is clear. You are enough.